What is the One Piece?
How the Japanese One Piece community convinced me that the ancient kingdom was part of Jaya, that it's now at the bottom of the sea under Enies Lobby.
Remembered, throughout my entire 200 plus videos about One Piece, I have never once done a single theory specifically talking about awakening. And probably
one thing that I've been pushing for a long, long time, several years in fact, actually early on in Act 2 was when I started saying this, was that this raid on Onigashima was going to fail. The raid failed. The raid failed. The raid failed. That raid failed. This whole raid, this whole assault on Onigashima, going down in flames. It's going to be a domino effect. Everybody's going to start losing.
Hey guys, Soy Boy here.
It's no surprise that One Piece has such a huge theory community, and not just because it's one of the most popular ongoing manga. Having been in weekly serialization for 20 plus years and having an overarching plot that teases the readers with countless long-form mysteries, such as the Void Century and Devil Fruit Origins, or what the titular One Piece itself actually is, it's only natural that people will guess at these mysteries. And one of the goals of a story is to get the readers hungry to know what happens next. But One Piece really takes it a step further because there's so much theory bait in this manga. Like, you know what I mean, Green Bull being a silhouette, for example. I've never been too invested in theory culture myself. At best, my response to a cool theory is, that's a neat route the story could go. And at worst, it's a sea of obnoxiously funny clickbait that pours over the discussion of the series. There are whole channels out there that pump out theories on a weekly basis. And that's to say nothing of the countless blogs and social media posts. With so many people making so many theories every week, some are bound to be accurate predictions. But the opposite also applies to an even larger degree. The vast majority of these theories turn out to be false, and because a lot of them try to be exciting and totally out there to grab attention, many of these theories fall flat on their face. In fact, when doing research for this video, I found that a lot of theories get deleted after a certain period of time if they turn out to be false. Like, probably the more embarrassing ones that people don't want their names attached to anymore. Like, when you reverse image search some of these thumbnails, like almost nothing comes up. It's kind of interesting. So today I want to talk about 5 theories I think are really, really funny. I don't want to shame people who enjoy theory culture, but I also want to laugh. So I'm going to be doing a lot of teasing in this video. Sorry if any of it happens to target you. Number 1. The man in the top hat and goggles who works for Luffy must be Sabo! He's alive! He's a pirate just like he always wanted to be! Gladius is a pretty unimportant member of the Don Quixote family. But it was, for a time, theorized that he was Sabo in disguise. Sabo being Luffy's sworn and also dead brother from his childhood. Or allegedly dead, because we all know he comes back later. I've only heard ghost stories from people who have been avid One Piece fans longer than me about this. This theory sounds hilarious in hindsight. Despite the fact that if I was reading One Piece for the first time and I was just introduced to Gladius, it's not completely unreasonable for one to think he might be Sabo. I mean, he's got a top hat and goggles and a mask, whoa. It just so happens that a separate, unrelated man with goggles and a top hat and a covered face happened to be in the same arc that Sabo was reintroduced in. I admit this possibly never crossed my mind experiencing the story for the first time, but that could have been because I didn't know about the huge theory culture until I switched to the manga. It's a very funny coincidence and makes me wonder if Gladius was intended as some kind of red herring. Like, did the story want readers to think Gladius was Sabo just so they could fake us out and have the actual Sabo show up later? It's a curious old theory that I find pretty charming. Number 2. Sanji has a secret family! Quick! Grab all the blonde characters you can think of and put them in the thumbnail! In Zou, Sanji was revealed to have belonged to a secret family of assassins called the Vinsmokes, who turned out to be Power Ranger Nazis. But before we saw the Power Ranger Nazis, the name Vinsmoke was open ground for theorists to push every dangerous looking blonde character in at the time, 800 chapter manga, to point out how Goda planned this all from the start. There was an enormous amount of people jumping on this bandwagon. Some people didn't advocate for a singular character in the thumbnail, but for many at the same time. So many in fact that contriving a connection between all of them would require quite the imagination. Like if you had to write a family backstory for Sanji, the blonde Gorosei member, Killer, and Bellamy, and somehow connected them to Big Mom's Tea Party, what would possibly work? I'm not entirely convinced some or maybe most of these theorists believed what they put in the thumbnail. I think they purposely crafted the theories to involve as many interesting characters as possible just to grab attention. Also, it's adorable how so many of them use the same picture of Sanji from Film Z, just because he's holding pistols in it. Very cute. Speaking of Sanji, Sanji's cosmic powers.
Today I have an absolutely awesome theory for you. Sanji's hidden cosmic powers. The purpose of Sanji's defining swirly eyebrows. Oda's response: "Hey, you sit right there. Now listen. Everyone lives in circles. The sun, the moon, and the earth all spin around. And if the earth suddenly stopped spinning, it would be a disaster. Tidal waves everywhere. Now remember that Sanji's eyebrows channels that circular energy. Reflect upon this. You may go." Oda left his readers reflecting and speculating for hundreds of chapters as to what this meant. What the hell does this mean? And with chapter 533, where the focus is unusually centered on the UFO search Sanji and his friend are carrying out. Oda has already drawn Sanji as a UFO himself. But as we're going forward in the story, it seems less and less likely that Sanji has some sort of extraterrestrial origins. Most planets in our solar system have counterclockwise rotation. But you'll notice the numbers 1830 on this briefcase. And what's interesting about this is that in 1830, Venus was in conjunction with the sun. Which animal or plant could provide their genetics in order to give Sanji some sort of power or ability? If you fail to come up with an answer, you are not alone. There's really no space-themed animal.
Now, to be fair, this theory isn't Joy Boy's. He gives credit to another Oro Jackson user. But this is just silly, right? Like, who in their right mind would believe this? What makes it even stranger is how this theory had a lot of thought put into it, like a surprising amount. And I've been on this side of the fence. People have called me crazy for saying One Piece could possibly have a space arc where, the Straw Hats go to the moon. And because of that, I want to try and have an open mind. But I think the key difference between Straw Hats Go to the Moon and Sanji's a space alien is that one is based on the fact that the moon is a place of interest to some characters already, and we actually have a cover story about NL's adventures on the moon. It's already a place with established lore and characters. But to argue Sanji is an alien, you have to take a clear joke made by the author super seriously, and then find every vaguely space-themed item in one of the longest manga ever, and make a bulletin board of all of them. None of which are particularly large or important elements to Sanji's character and how he's treated in the story. Like, it just screams conspiracy nut. And I don't think this theory is indicative of Joy Boy's talents as a creator. Rather, I think it's a testament to what a weekly video grind can push people to make. Which is why I'm never gonna try and do that. And this theory is a hilarious reminder. Number 4, this list of Kaido theories. I'm just gonna lump them all together. Kaido is a Sea King Zoan. Kaido is a Chimera Zoan who can give his tattoos and horns to others in order to make them Quasi-Zoans. This person forgot how smile foods work. Kaido is a road poneglyph. Kaido was scientifically modified. We know this because he has swirly eyebrows just like Sanji. Kaido is a Cerberus Zoan, because my other theory says Blackbeard is going to steal his dove fruit and Blackbeard has 3 skulls on his flag, so he's got to be a Cerberus. Kaido is a Typhoon Zoan because an obscure specific Greek myth is totally One Piece's style, and it's not like every other zone is a fairly basic and well-known animal. It's kind of weird that Kaido may have more theories than any other character, besides maybe Blackbeard and Shanks. The weirdest Big Mom theory I could find is Nami is a Charlotte, and that's about the only one that's funny. What is it about Kaido that gets people like this? Is it just the hype? Is it just the fact that there was a Zoan fruit mentioned, so it opened possibilities for different animals? I think the reason why I find these theories of Kaido's fruit funny because they all had to ignore the most obvious answer. That being Kaido's fruit being a dragon devil fruit. We knew the samurai had some kind of hatred for dragons. The monster one-shot, which was retroactively made a prequel to One Piece, involves a dragon in Wano. Momo, a character with an important connection to Kaido, becomes a dragon and hates it at first. And when you're making a character who's the king of the beasts and supposedly the strongest zone user, a dragon is probably one of the first ideas that come to mind. That's not to say Kaido being a dragon was set in stone or anything, but the simplest answer is usually the correct one. And many theorists saw it coming a mile away. But if every theorist practiced that, then they probably wouldn't get as many clicks. I imagine many of the theorists here diverge from the dragon theory just to stick out of the mold. Number 5. The Going Jinbei Senpai. This is actually a theory I myself made many years ago. If you want to read my original blog post, I'll link it down below, but I'll just read straight from it, typos and all. I believe that Big Mom will kill Jinbei and put his soul into a ship and then sail it into Wano. Jinbei is a great helmsman, and the Big Mom pirates know this because they've been chasing him for hours. This way, Jinbei will die but also not die. Quote, even if you die, don't die. And Jinbei will technically keep his promise to meet Luffy and Wano. If Jinbei came back as a homie, it would have been epic, and Oda is a... I'm still doing the voice. If Jinbei came back as a homie, it would have been epic, and Oda's a hack writer for not making it happen. Having Jinbei just show up right before the raid feels like a wasted opportunity. Granted, it's a good morale boost after Kanjo's betrayal, but come on, Jinbei boned. My theory didn't come true, therefore One Piece is garbage. I hope everyone understands I made this video in good fun, but before I sign out, now is the perfect time to talk about how a lot of these plot twists are constructed in One Piece, and just I guess a weekly running manga in general. Bakuman is a very great manga about a mangaka duo writing and illustrating stories for Shonen Jump. It's great, you should read it, but assuming you haven't, one of the best chapters is chapter 148, where the duo look back at another older mangaka's series, keeping in mind a couple things he said about his work process. And they come to realize that despite his story being so well thought out, he was doing it by the seat of his pants like every other weekly author. The trick he used was simply to reread his own story and find details he could bring back up to add a sense of continuity. We all love talking about how godly an author Oda is and how he plans everything hundreds of chapters in advance, decades in advance. But I feel what Oda does is much closer to the situation described in Bakuman than it is the 4D chess galaxy brain perfect plan people pretend One Piece is. I believe the way Oda reincorporates past characters and events is him drawing inspiration from his past rather than him constantly planning for the future. It's not all too different from how theorists try to construct their own theories, in fact, that's what I think is interesting about this. And obviously Oda does plan for the future, it's gonna be a mix of both at the end of the day. But I'm sure that a lot of the things that gets reincorporated were left open-ended intentionally so he could always go back to it and see what he can do with it. Now, I'm not saying any of this to downplay Oda-sensei as a writer or anything. In fact, I believe this skill is just as valuable, if not more so, than being able to plan ahead. Especially in a serialized format like Weekly Shonen Jump. Because this method of, retroactively working things in is far more flexible, and the result is more or less the same, isn't it? Although I'm sure to many of you that sounds a lot more mundane than Goda's had us dancing in the palm of his hand, ah! So yeah, that's my last petty complaint. People are giving Oda enough credit, just in the wrong way. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say here. Thank you all so much for watching, like, sub, you know the drill, and I hope you have a good one.